Every year in the United States, more than 450,000 vehicles are sold with fake odometer readings. That number comes directly from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the federal agency responsible for investigating this crime. Nearly 500,000 cars, trucks, and SUVs changing hands with mileage that was deliberately altered to make the vehicle look less used than it actually is. CARFAX research puts the average financial loss to buyers at around $4,000 per vehicle. Money paid an inflated purchase price for a car that's actually worth less. Plus, the surprise repair bills that start showing up when components that should have been replaced thousands of miles ago start failing. And here's the part that makes this worse. Most buyers have no idea it happened. They drive the car for months before anything seems wrong. By then, they have no recourse, no refund, and a car that needs far more work than they bargained for. Today I'm going to walk you through 9 specific things you can check before you buy any used vehicle. Checks that take minutes, and that can catch odometer fraud before you hand over your money. Let's get into it. Before we get into the 9 checks, there's something you need to understand about how odometer fraud actually works today, because most people have the wrong mental model of it. The classic image of odometer fraud is someone in a garage physically winding back a mechanical dial with a drill or a screwdriver. That method did exist, and some older vehicles with mechanical odometers are still vulnerable to physical tampering. But the vast majority of vehicles on American roads today have digital odometers, and those are actually more vulnerable to fraud than mechanical ones, not less. Here's why. Modern vehicles store mileage data in the instrument cluster electronically. Anyone with an OBD2 diagnostic device, the same port your mechanic plugs into for emissions testing, located under your dashboard, and commercially available software that costs a few $100 online can overwrite the mileage stored in the instrument cluster in minutes. No physical disassembly required. No visible signs of tampering on the dashboard. The number just changes. CARFAX has documented more than 2.45 million vehicles currently on American roads that have suspected rollback odometers, a number that has increased 14% in recent years as the tools to do this have become cheaper and more accessible. This is a federal crime under the Motor Vehicle Information and Cost Savings Act. It carries penalties of up to 3 years in prison and $10,000 in fines per vehicle. Federal law also gives buyers the right to recover 3 times their actual damages, or $10,000, whichever is greater, if they can prove fraud. But recovering money after the fact is difficult, slow, and uncertain. The better strategy is not to buy the car in the first place. Here's how you check. Check number 1 is the pedals and steering wheel. This is the fastest physical check you can do, and it costs nothing. The gas pedal, brake pedal, and clutch pedal on a manual transmission car were in a very consistent way with mileage. A vehicle that genuinely has 40,000 miles on it should have pedal surfaces that still show most of their original rubber tread or covering. A vehicle with 100,000 or more miles of real use will typically show significant wear. The rubber may be worn smooth, the edges may be rounded, the surface texture may be largely gone. If you're looking at a car with 45,000 on the odometer and the brake pedal looks like it's been worn completely smooth, that mismatch is a serious red flag. Pedal rubber is not replaced as a routine maintenance item. It wears at a predictable rate with actual use. Sellers who roll back odometers don't typically think to replace the pedals, so the wear is often still there to see. The steering wheel tells a similar story. Leather or plastic steering wheels develop wear patterns over time, particularly at the 9 and 3 o'clock positions where hands naturally rest. Heavy wear on a supposedly low mileage car is a mismatch worth investigating. Check number 2 is the driver's seat and interior. Seat upholstery, door panel surfaces, and the area around the driver's door handle all wear with use in ways that are difficult to fake or fix without an obvious restoration. A car with genuine low mileage has a driver's seat that still looks relatively fresh. The bolsters, the raised sides of the seat, should have minimal sagging or wear. The headrest fabric or leather should be largely intact. The area around the door handle where a driver's hand reaches every time they get in should not be significantly worn or discolored. The carpet directly under the driver's feet wears in a characteristic pattern from years of entry and exit. None of these things are definitive proof on their own, but significant interior wear on a vehicle showing low mileage is a pattern that deserves a harder look at the other checks on this list. Check number 3 is the tires. Tires are one of the most honest indicators of true mileage because most people replace them on a reasonably consistent schedule based on actual wear. Standard all-season tires on a passenger vehicle typically last 40,000 to 60,000 miles, depending on the tire grade and driving conditions. If a vehicle is showing 35,000 miles on the odometer, but has tires that are completely worn down to the wear indicators, or worse, has brand new tires on it with no documentation of why they were replaced, that's worth asking about. Brand new tires on a supposedly low-mileage vehicle are actually a red flag rather than a positive sign, because it raises the question of why tires needed replacement at low mileage. Ask the seller when and why the tires were replaced, and look for any documentation. Mismatched tires, different brands, or different wear levels on different corners can also indicate a history that doesn't align with the claimed mileage. Check number 4 is under the hood. The engine bay of a vehicle accumulates grime, discoloration, and wear in ways that are proportional to age and mileage. Hoses and belts develop surface cracking and stiffness over time. Wiring harnesses may show brittleness or discoloration at high mileage. Gasket surfaces around the valve cover and oil pan often develop slight seepage in higher mileage engines. A fresh engine bay that looks unusually clean on a higher vehicle can mean someone recently steam cleaned it, which isn't necessarily fraudulent, but is worth noting. More importantly, look at the components themselves. Pull the oil dipstick. Dark, sludgy oil on a vehicle that supposedly has low mileage and recent oil changes doesn't add up. Look at the condition of the spark plug wires or coil-on plug connectors. These show age and deterioration. Look at the condition of coolant hoses. Squeeze them. Firm and pliable is normal. Soft, spongy, or brittle indicates age that may not match the claimed mileage. Check number 5 is the service records. This is one of the most reliable and most frequently skipped checks in the used car buying process. Service records are physical documentation of what happened to the vehicle over time. Oil changes, filter replacements, tire rotations, major repairs. Each service record typically has a date and a mileage reading. If you have a stack of oil change receipts or a dealer service history showing dated mileage entries, you can trace the vehicle's actual use over time. Look for a consistent, logical progression of mileage. A car that shows 12,000 miles per year consistently for 5 years and then suddenly shows 3,000 miles for the next 2 years is a pattern worth questioning. Look for gaps in the service history, periods of a year or more with no documented service. Ask about those gaps. A legitimate seller with nothing to hide can usually explain service gaps. A seller who gets defensive or vague about missing records is a warning sign. Many buyers open the glove box and check for oil change stickers from quick lube shops. These stickers typically record the date and mileage of the last service. If the most recent sticker shows a service at 92,000 miles and the odometer now reads 47,000, you have documented proof of a rollback. Similarly, look on the door jamb for dealer service stickers from previous oil changes. These are small details that sellers who roll back odometers often overlook because they're focused on the main display and not the paper trail throughout the car. Check number 6 is the vehicle history report. This is one of the most important tools available to used car buyers, and it's something you should never skip regardless of how clean the car looks or how trustworthy the seller seems. CARFAX and AutoCheck are the two primary providers of vehicle history reports in the United States, and both aggregate data from thousands of sources: state title agencies, insurance companies, service facilities, rental car companies, auction houses, and more. Every time a vehicle is serviced at a shop that reports to these databases, or transfers title in a state that reports to them, the mileage at that point gets recorded. A vehicle history report shows you a timeline of recorded mileage entries. If the mileage line on the report goes up consistently over time and then suddenly drops, that's documented evidence of a rollback. If there are significant unexplained gaps in the reporting history, periods where the vehicle apparently had no transactions recorded, those gaps may represent time when the vehicle was in the hands of someone who was preparing it for fraudulent resale. A CARFAX report typically costs $40 for a single report or less if bundled. It's one of the most cost-effective purchases you can make before buying a used vehicle. NHTSA also maintains a free odometer fraud database at vehicle.gov that's worth running any VIN through as a zero-cost first check. It won't catch every case, but it takes 60 seconds and costs nothing. Check number 7 is the title history. The title is the legal document of ownership, and it contains mileage disclosure information that is legally required to be accurate at every transfer. When you see the title for a vehicle you're considering buying, look at it carefully. Examine the mileage entries from previous ownership transfers. These should show a logical progression over time. Look at the physical condition of the document itself. Are numbers in the mileage fields unusually dark, as if they were written over? Are there signs of correction, fluid, or erasure? Is the ink consistent throughout the document, or does the mileage entry look different from other text on the same form? These can be signs of title washing, the physical alteration of a title document to match a rolled back odometer. Also, look at the title history in terms of where the vehicle has been. CARFAX's research and NHTSA data both indicate that vehicles are sometimes moved across state lines, specifically to launder title history, sold in one state, with a clean title that doesn't reflect the known fraud from a previous state. Multiple state transfers in a short period, especially involving states known for weaker title fraud enforcement, is a pattern worth noting. Check the title state against where the car was supposedly owned and operated. Check number 8 is the OBD2 scan for ECU mileage. This is the most technically reliable check on the list, and the one that directly catches digital odometer fraud at the source. Here's how it works. Modern vehicles store mileage data not just in the instrument cluster display, but in multiple electronic control units. Throughout the vehicle, the engine ECU, the ABS module, the airbag control module, and others. These modules store mileage independently of the instrument cluster. When someone uses an OBDII tool to roll back the odometer display, they typically alter the data in the instrument cluster and possibly the main ECU, but they frequently don't, or can't easily, alter all of the secondary modules. A mechanic or a knowledgeable buyer with a capable OBD2 scan tool can read the mileage stored in these secondary modules and compare it to the odometer display. If the instrument cluster shows 45,000 miles, but the ABS module shows 112,000, you have hard electronic evidence of tampering. This check requires a scan tool that can access multiple modules, not just the basic code readers that read engine fault codes. Many independent mechanics can do this check as part of a pre-purchase inspection for $50 to $100. If you're serious about a vehicle and it's showing suspiciously low mileage for its age, this check is worth the cost. A pre-purchase inspection by a trusted independent mechanic, one who has no relationship with the seller, is one of the smartest investments any used car buyer can make. And checking for ECU mileage consistency is something a good mechanic will know to include. Check number 9 is the price itself. This one is less technical than the others, but it's an important gut check that buyers sometimes override when they get excited about a deal. Odometer fraud exists because it works financially. A vehicle with rollback mileage appears to be worth more than it actually is. Sellers who commit this fraud price the vehicle based on the false low mileage, which means the asking price for a rolled-back vehicle is often in the range of what that vehicle would genuinely be worth at the lower mileage. In other words, the fraud creates what appears to be a good deal. A 2018 Honda CR-V with 40,000 miles genuinely is worth more than the same car with 110,000 miles. If you find a 2018 Honda CR-V priced at what seems like fair market value for 40,000 miles, that's either a legitimate deal or a vehicle whose mileage has been tampered with to justify that price. Either way, it's a vehicle that deserves every single check on this list before you commit to buying it. Use Cully Blue Book or Edmunds to look up the actual market value of the vehicle at the claimed mileage, and also at what the mileage would be if the car averaged typical annual use for its age. A 7-year-old vehicle with 40,000 miles on it has been driven about 5,700 miles per year, significantly below average American annual mileage of 13,500. That's not impossible, but it's uncommon enough to warrant scrutiny. If the price looks like a deal, ask yourself whether the mileage is why it looks like a deal, and then verify that mileage using the checks in this video. Here's how to put all 9 checks together in a practical sequence when you're evaluating a used car. Start with the vehicle history report before you even go to see the car. You can run a CARFAX or check vehiclehistory.gov from home with just the VIN, which the seller should be willing to provide. If the history report shows any mileage discrepancies or unexplained gaps, you've saved yourself a trip. If the history looks clean, go to see the vehicle. Do the physical checks first: pedals, steering wheel, interior, tires, engine bay, in the first 5 minutes before you even start talking price. If something looks off, ask about it directly and watch how the seller responds. Then look at the title carefully. Then request all service records and look through them for mileage documentation. If everything looks consistent and you're still interested, have a trusted independent mechanic do a pre-purchase inspection that includes an OBDII multi-module mileage check. This full sequence takes a few hours and costs $50 to $100 for the mechanic inspection. That's cheap insurance against a $4,000 loss or more. If you buy a vehicle and then discover the mileage was tampered with, if service records surface after the fact, or a mechanic finds the ECU mileage discrepancy, you have legal options. Federal law allows you to recover 3 times your actual damages, or $10,000, whichever is greater, plus attorney's fees, from a seller who committed odometer fraud. Report the fraud to NHTSA at 1-888-327-4236 and to your state attorney general's office. Document everything: the purchase contract, the title, any service records, the CARFAX report, and the mechanic's findings. Consult a consumer protection attorney about your specific situation and state laws. The bottom line is this: nearly 500,000 Americans get burned by odometer fraud every year. The scam works because digital rollbacks leave no visible trace on the odometer itself, and most buyers don't know what else to look at. The 9 checks in this video: pedals, interior wear, tires, engine bay, service records, vehicle history report, title, ECU scan, and price logic collectively give you a thorough picture of whether the mileage on the car you're looking at is real. Use them every single time you're buying used. It takes a couple hours and could save you thousands. If this helped you, hit the like button. Drop a comment and tell me what state you're in. CARFAX data shows dramatically different odometer fraud rates by state, and I'm curious where our viewers are buying. Subscribe for more practical, real car information. There's a lot more coming.